Welcome to LYLAS. If you grew up in the 90s, then you probably know what that stands for. But if not, we love you like a sister. Welcome to the show.
Amen, right? I love hearing you say that. It just rolls off your tongue beautifully. It makes me so happy. It reminds me of
As I've
signing
said it,
notes again.
I've said it 35 times now at least.
I know you're really
35
good at
episodes worth.
it, which is
Um,
awesome.
we always kind of say like this show's for everybody. We know we have some male listeners.
Hmm.
But I would say today is probably more for the ladies in general, for the real sisters. Because if you don't have a menstrual cycle, then you probably don't care about what we have to say today.
That's very fair. Unless you're very inquisitive about learning more about your wife or your partner, then we appreciate that as well. But this is definitely one for the ladies, I think, just overall.
Or you
So,
might want to share the information with your wife or your
yeah.
partner. But at any rate, today we're going to talk a little bit about aging, of course, because it's always at the top of our minds. And of course, this is a mental wellness podcast. And so we're always looking for anything to improve our overall well being, including our mental health. We know
Mhm.
it's all connected, head to toes. And so today's topic is something that we are not experts on. We want to say that first and foremost. It's something kind of new to both of us that we have been researching and trialing, but very interested in. And so we wanted to share it with our listeners and see if anybody out there is also interested in cycle syncing, and just to kind of put it out there. And if you haven't heard of it, hopefully today will give you some insight and do some of
Mhm.
your own research.
I think one of the coolest things about doing this podcast is, we all have our own views and thoughts about what wellness is and what that looks like. But to being able to talk to like your bestie about it and hearing what you
Mm,
have to say about it, I just think that my depth and level of interest in things has just expanded substantially. Like, would I have ever looked into this as a topic? Probably not. But
right.
since you mentioned it as an interest and started just casually talking about how impactful it can be on your life and just how that information can transcend to our responses and just everything else, it just really it's cool to have a relationship and a friendship like that where you can just be like, hey, I found this really cool thing out. What do you think? And then here we are today, now sharing it with our podcast listeners to see what you all think about this. So it's good to have these conversations. It's good to have this openness and venue to be able to discuss these fun things.
Yeah, well, it's kind of forcing us in some ways, right, um to look into new ideas. I mean, I'm game to try anything. I've tried, like I've said before, I've tried every diet, most exercise programs. Like I'll do anything to improve general wellness. And so anytime I see something sort of up and coming in the health and fitness industry, I follow a lot of like fitness influencers, those types of things. And so when you start to see things over and over again, it's like, oh, maybe I want to like check into that. What is that? Like intermittent fasting a decade ago or whatever it is. I'll try anything once. So when I started hearing about cycle syncing, I was actually in a yoga class.
Hmm.
Gosh, this was probably 2 years ago. And there was like a special guest, if you will, at the yoga class, and she was starting a business of helping women regulate their menstrual cycles. And she was like, follow me on Instagram. So I started following her. And at first I read through it and I was like, oh, cool. It's when we talk about cycles, I mean, obviously we know what a menstrual cycle is, right? I mean, we're women. We all sat through health class. We have a general idea, but it's always been in relationship to conceiving, or at
Mhm.
least from my
Or not
experience.
conceiving, right?
Right. How do you prevent it, or how do you improve your chances as you get
Mhm.
older? If you struggle with fertility, those types of things. But I had never really thought about my cycle in terms of general health and wellness and how it can reflect so much information, right? So
Mhm.
it gives you information about your overall health and wellness, but it can give you some real insight or at least some validation for the way that our emotions and the way our body feels and all the things that we go through in a month. And
Mhm.
so I'm trying to think when I actually started delving into this about a month and a half, 2 months ago. I can't remember. Oh, I know what it was. I had gone to the doctor last year. I gone to my OB and I told her that my cycles had changed since I had turned 40.
Mhm.
It shortened quite a bit. And she's like, well, yeah, that's just normal. Like, perimenopause, like you're in that age range, like things change.
Mhm.
Went home and being like, F that. Like, I refuse to believe that we just like dry up and die as women. And so, um, I of course was still like plugging a lot. Like last year was a lot of self reflection, a lot of
Mhm.
self exploration, just trying to do some like real inner work. And
Mhm.
this started like coming up again on like some of the influences I follow. And so I really started to look into it a couple months ago. And I've just learned so much. And I don't know if I mentioned this, but I downloaded this app. It's called 28,
No.
and
Mhm.
it you put in your specific information. And so similar, like if you were trying to get pregnant, there were apps out there for that too. And it would tell you like this is the weekend to like get busy, like that kind of stuff. This is similar, but it's more related to like here's how you're probably feeling. These are what your hormones are doing. Like it's very specific and like your hormones are plummeting today. You're probably going to be extra moody. You're probably, experiencing bloating, blah, blah, blah.
So
And it
hold on.
just
The app tells you this?
tells you all of this. It goes through like
What?
these different insights. So there's
Oh my
like your
gosh.
emotions might feel. And the best part about this is what I found really cool because of course I'm a data research nerd, but like it links the research articles, like the scientific evidence to back up what it's saying. So it's not like some person saying
Mhm.
how you feel, you're probably bloated today. It's like click this link, it's like got a hyperlink and you can go and actually see like 1000 studies demonstrated blah 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 blah.
Mhm.
And so I like that it gives you that scientific evidence. And I mean it gives you all kinds of stuff. It'll tell you like relationship wise, like
Oh my
here are
gosh.
some suggestions. It links like specific workouts you can do based on what phase of your cycle you're in. So I have found it to be so informative and also just validating on so many levels. Like anxiety, I didn't realize your anxiety increases as your estrogen goes down.
Mhm.
I didn't realize that in like the last 2 days. I mean, now everybody's going to know my cycle. I'm in the luteal phase. I'm about to start menstruation. So I'm at the end
Oh.
of my cycle right now, and I've had more anxious feelings, like heart racing, like those types of like physical symptoms that I get in the last 2 days. But when I open my app, it's telling me this is completely related to my hormones right now. And I'm like, okay, I'm not about to dive into another cycle of panic attacks. My estrogen is lower. So like I'm just changing things, which is all what cycle syncing is about. It's about supporting your hormones so that you can lessen these symptoms over time, right?
How
So
cool. So it sounds
right,
like, yeah, you just even having that, I guess, correlation between the anxiety and then your cycle, you automatically felt better about life. Like everything
right.
was just like, oh, okay, I'm cool.
Yeah, instead of going down, the tunnel vision of like, oh
Mhm.
my gosh, is my anxiety coming back? I've been regulating it so well and things have been going so well and I haven't been experiencing like heart palpitations, like all of these things,
Mhm.
heart, racing thoughts and it's like, no, bitch, your estrogen is low and you're about to get your period and 1000 studies have shown that women's anxiety increases during these few days right before your menstruation starts, right? So it just, it was like, okay, like go through the motions, right? Do all the things that work for you.
Mhm.
Ice on the chest, which I am forever grateful that you taught me that because that is like such a game changer. I take a cold shower every day,
Mhm.
like as ice cold as I can get it. Like anything where I have to take a deep breath, but specifically on these days when I'm experiencing more anxiety than normal.
Mhm.
So right, you're just doing all the things and it regulates so much faster and you're not in a downward spiral. So like I said, I will do anything to help regulate my body and
Yeah.
my sensory system.
Wow. Well, the two are so connected with this. So that app does sound like it's been incredible just whenever it comes to those personal observations, validation,
Mhm.
like you said, and grounding. And then what else are you, I mean, how did you even get onto this? You said from influencers, but then you also
Mhm.
went to your doctor. So you're not just making like on the whim kind of, social media based decisions, which is a thank God, right? Because we could we could end up in some
Yeah,
not just
we can
rabbit
all
holes, but
become
trash holes on that one.
well,
Right?
yeah. So again, we're midlifers, right? We're post 40. We know that perimenopause is a thing at this point and it's coming down the
Mm-hmm.
pipe, headed our way. And so what can we do? I just kept thinking about, well, what can I do on the prevention side? I don't want to be reactive about everything in life. And
Mm-hmm.
so I did have my hormone levels checked to see just a baseline. Like it's not going to
Mm-hmm.
get a ton of information unless you do have some sort of deficit. But mine were normal, and it was like, okay, check, like that's normal. So that's good in a lot of ways. In that, like, this app is probably going to be more consistent with what I'm feeling from day to day. I also I've tracked my cycles for a long time. Like I just have always been such a textbook gal, a 28-day gal, by the book, you know. I was on I was on birth control forever. It felt like
Mm-hmm.
and then when my husband got snipped, I went off of it and everything sort of changed. Like my body changed, my cycles changed, my moods changed, all the things changed.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I just started tracking all of these things. And like I said, noticed they were shorter. So, yes, went and had my hormones checked. And then as I've started to think about, okay, everything is normal. So let's
Mm-hmm.
look at how we can support our body through each one of these phases, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, it's a lot about like the foods that you eat. It's a lot about the types of exercises you do. And I exercise every day. So I'm like, why do why am I still gaining 5 pounds every month? Not like, gain 5 pounds, lose. It's water weight, it's water retention. You know that it's probably related to your period. But if you can do things
Yeah.
like eat certain foods, do certain types of exercise that help regulate those hormone levels, why not? It's going to make those PMS symptoms reduce, all the
Mm-hmm.
things. You may not like lose your shit every day during your luteal phase. Like, it just helps make everything a little bit easier. Is it going to take all your symptoms away? No, it's
Mm-mm.
not, but it's going to lessen them. And I am here for that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's cool that, again, in being a consumer of knowledge and then data, to get to advocate in some ways to get your hormone levels checked by your GP, because that's not a typical thing that happens on
No.
panels. And I know we're not going like full medical on this, but two, I think as women or as we're trying to make all of these personal health improvements, it is important for us to remember we have to be our own advocates sometimes when going into our general practitioner. They have an agenda that they are running through based upon different criteria that they have to meet per regulation and whatever else. But also, you need to go into those appointments with your own agenda so that way you can get this information. And having
Mm-hmm.
baseline data is sometimes the best thing to know if there's anything later on down the road that could signify a
Mm-hmm.
change. And so since you have that, that's like gold, that you're just sitting on, wait until the value goes up or down and then figure some things out with it, you know? So
Yeah,
really
you have to check everything first and foremost, I think.
great.
And like I
Mm-hmm.
said, we are not experts on this by any means. I mean, I certainly am just kind of like trial and error, like rolling with it as I go, learning more every
Mm-hmm.
day. But it's definitely something that I'm interested in, and I've already seen a change. Like I've been very conscientious about what I've eaten, um, water intake. I've drastically cut the amount of alcohol. Not that I've always been a huge
Mm-hmm.
alcohol consumer, but like anybody, I socially drink, and not anybody, but like most people, some people, I don't know. Um, I socially drink, but like even just trying to be more mindful, like there are certain, phases of your cycle. We have 4 phases. Um, Certain phases where alcohol is going to impact your hormones more
Mm-hmm.
and have more side effects. And so just being really conscientious about what you're taking in, how that's going to affect you, and ultimately how you're going to be able to handle stress. I mean, I think that's a big one. Like, we're in that season of life right now that just comes with a lot of stress. We have a marriage, we have young children, we have careers, we have a crap ton of responsibilities, we have aging parents. The list goes on, and it just sometimes it feels overwhelming. And so if you can help support yourself, and I almost think of it like support from the inside,
Mhm.
right? So
Mhm.
how can I support like internal um Jenny? Externally I have other supports, but internally, how can I help myself manage stress or deal with stress as it
Mhm.
comes, because you can't eliminate it.
Yeah.
This is just like another tool in the toolbox, as we say all the time.
Mhm.
But that's kind of the beauty in this, is to give people tools, or
Right.
at least expose them to tools. And I'm all about sharing is caring. So if I'm going to try it, you're probably going to hear about it if you sit down for a conversation with me.
Sharon is carrying like in Care-a-Lot from the Care Bears as a
Right.
1980s kid, right? Oh my God, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember that.
But from what I've read, this is great for like people that experience PCOS.
Mhm.
I know that they recommend really looking into that. If you're experiencing like extreme fatigue, obviously there are so many things that can cause these symptoms,
Mhm.
but these are like simple things you can do. Like, you can, we have a link on the website. If you go to the LYLAS podcast, you'll.com, you will see our resources page, and we have a link where you can go and look at like exactly what foods you should be eating during each phase to help support yourself,
Mhm.
types of exercise to engage in during each phase of your cycle. Same
Mhm.
thing if you download that 28 app. It tells you all the same stuff. Like, you're going to want to eat more nuts this phase, and whatever, that you're going to want to reduce your alcohol consumption, those types of things. So it's just, those are so simple to implement. It is way simpler than like taking a daily medication, or
Right.
or being constantly stressed out and anxious and like dealing, that is so
Mhm.
taxing. So
Mhm.
do the small easy things
So
and
since you've
alleviate
been,
that.
yeah, but since you've been doing, like, I'm sitting here in shock at some of the things that you're saying. I mean, what is like a few things, if you can give us some like nuggets, like that you've discovered through this, that maybe is like a food that you were told to eat or like an exercise you were told to do or not to do that were just kind of like, huh, like shocking or like aha kind of moments with it? Like, has there been something that was
Mm,
just like, oh, that's
the
weird?
biggest ones. I think giving myself permission. I tend to be pretty hard on myself when I don't work out, right? I've been
Uh-huh.
exercising since I was 13. And so if I skip a workout or skip two workouts, like, I can shame spiral myself all day.
Mm,
And so just more like, or if I don't go hard and do hit classes, like I used to do Orange Theory every single day religiously, like, especially in the summer when I'm not working,
mm,
but always like at least 3 times a week. Like, I've always been a die hard, like, hit kind of gal, cardio gal, love that weight training. And I think what I've learned is to move with, like, listen to your body, listen to your intuition. Like
mhm,
this morning, knowing kind of what phase I'm in, like, if I would have followed my general calendar, today would have been like a hit class, right?
mhm,
And my body just wasn't feeling it. I'm sore, I'm bloated, I'm
mm,
tired. It's the end
mhm.
of the week. I did yoga this morning, right?
Oh, cool.
Gentle yoga. So, like, being more mindful and really trusting your intuition, listening to your body and saying, like, I'm just not feeling it, not using it as an excuse,
Mhm,
because here's the thing: next phase is menstruation. We know that lasts like 5 to 7 days, depending on each person. And then the phase after that, I can't remember off the top of my head what, I think it's follicle phase.
mhm.
I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. Again, not an expert, not trying to be.
We
Um,
don't even know what's going on in here right now. Is that?
right. I'm like, I don't know the
I'm
name
just
of
sitting
it.
here like, what?
I know that, as that's when your estrogen, like, goes through the roof and comes back, and so like you have more energy,
Mm,
like that's when
mhm.
you're going to want to do like those high interval intensity classes, or
Okay.
more weight training, that kind of stuff. So just really being cognizant of like where you're at in your cycle, what feels good for your body, and giving yourself permission not to like beat your body up every day.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a time and a place for going hard, and there's a time and a place for being really gentle and giving
Mm-hmm.
yourself permission to be gentle. Also, the biggest thing, I tend to give in to like cravings, right? Because I don't want to deny myself any food group or particular foods. Like I just am trying to move away from like bad food, good food. It's like everything in
Mm-hmm.
moderation and just being cognizant. And so, what I have read is that you should reduce your sugar intake during the phase that I'm currently in.
Mm-hmm.
So, just being really mindful of that. Like, yes, I wanted to eat a piece of chocolate cake yesterday. I drove right past Nothing Bundt Cake on the way home, and I thought, ooh, I could just swirl right in there, grab us a buntini, and take that baby home. But I was like, no, like I should actually give my body nutrition because that is actually what's going to help me
Mm-hmm.
and alleviate some of my symptoms rather than feeding it the sugar, being now the sugar dragon. So again, just it's given me more information
Mm-hmm.
to make better decisions. I still had a piece of chocolate yesterday, but I didn't have like a chocolate cake, you
Right.
know. So like there's some like piece of dark chocolate not going to kill me, not
Mm-mm.
going to like have crazy impact on my hormones. But it's all about helping us make better choices.
Gosh, that's so cool. Definitely. Yeah, and I can see how just again, the more that you're able to collect on this and observe, the healthier you're able to feel. And again, it's not like you're being asked to climb a mountain here. You're just
Mm-mm.
learning a little bit more about truly our biology,
Exactly. How
which
our
again,
bodies work.
right, right, which is so important. It's just astounding that we really don't get that much education on it. And I guess that the purpose is so that
No.
it's self-education, maybe. Like that's what we all need to be better students of. But like we're only required to take like what, one health class a year? And then we're just supposed to know how, like that's supposed to be a manual for how this thing works. And we get it in like high school and that's it. Like that's such crap, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's
Oh.
just like also my question for health providers or
Mm-hmm.
not to like I actually adore my OB. I love the practice that I go to. I've gone there for years. They delivered my babies. But like why wasn't that part of her response? Not just like, "Yep, you're kind of drying up. This is the end, babe." Why wasn't it like, "Hey, have you ever thought about how you can support your hormones? Like, here's go research this. Go look into it." Like I'm not asking somebody to like do give me the cliff notes, but mention these things so that it's not so that it's a little bit more like it's in your control. Like
Yeah.
sometimes I feel like we walk out of those appointments and we're like, oh, well, this is just out of my control. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I guess this is how it is, just this what to expect. And it's like, no, damn it. Like we have so much more control than we give ourselves credit for.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wish that people were more open. And I'm sure, there's a litany of reasons why she didn't mention it.
Sure.
Maybe she hadn't thought about it, like whatever, right? We're human.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, but I just
Mm-mm.
wish that we got, even when I asked my GP about it, I was like, have you ever heard of cycle syncing? And she was like, yeah, I read a little bit about it. Like, I'm not super familiar.
Mm-hmm.
It's just those types of things. Like, are they being, when people are going through medical school, is this something they're learning about? Like, clearly, from whatever, there's a ton of research. And so I'm just curious why it's not being put out there as like mainstream information, if that makes sense.
No, it totally does make sense. I think one thing, it seems like maybe more so within our culture as opposed to others that I've been able to like go and see the whole female body and like having periods and the whole cycle, whatever this whole thing is, I feel like it still has a sense of taboo in a
Mm-hmm.
way attached to it here that is not congruent with how things are in other places. And I'm not saying it's better because I mean, you can look at news stories about other places and people getting like extra taxes for tampons or whatever else that kind of happens. But
Mm-hmm.
it does seem like that there is more open discussion on women's health in general in some
Mhm.
ways. But back in the day, whenever I used to practice, especially like in more of like a health psychology kind of realm, I would do public seminars or like, lunch and learns for the community about how to use a doctor's appointment.
Mm. Mhm.
And that was the entire focus on a class, like what you can do to be a better, more proactive patient.
Mhm.
And those seminars that I would do were often the ones that were like the best attended. I mean, I'd be doing a talk on like, I don't know, diabetes and diabetes month. And yeah, there'd be, 20 or 30 diabetics in there. But whenever it was like how to utilize your doctor's appointment, it would be like a full 150 people,
Mm.
kind of coming
That's
in
interesting.
and yeah, and learning and listening about this. Or whenever people go to, again, I used to get referrals from a lot of GPs or family practice doctors, and then they were being referred on to specialty because they got diagnosed with something. And so
Mhm.
at that point, one of the things that we would work on is like, okay, well, you're getting ready to go into a specialty appointment. It's going to be a little bit different. Let's talk about expectations and what you can do to get the most out of these appointments. Because I just, it's not taught. I mean, I don't think that it is taught on how to teach people to be better patients in medical school.
Yeah,
I've
and
taught in medical schools. It's not part of the curriculum, at least in the two that I've taught at. So,
what's interesting is that we tend to put physicians and medical staff like on this pedestal, right? Like they're so much
mhm,
smarter than everybody else and their time is so limited. They see so many patients and you're just kind of like, at least my experience has always been like a get in, get out, your 15-minute window. They sweep
mhm,
in, check your heart, they check your blood pressure, listen to you breathe, ask you how you're doing, give you a
mhm,
refill on your meds. Like just a very like basic. And I go every 3 months. But when you step back and think about it, I don't know what everybody's insurance is like. I mean, we have decent insurance, but I pay $100, and not including what my insurance pays. Roughly, I pay $100 for every one of these visits. Like, in what other realm would you accept not receiving much in exchange for $100? Right?
right, yeah,
Not, because they're not, the meds aren't free.
mm,
Now I got to make a trip to the pharmacy too, actually,
mhm,
and get the medication and pay for that too. And so like we should be getting our $100 worth, like not to
mhm,
sound like cheapo, but like that's $100. Like you
mhm,
should get something in return for that, not just somebody listening to you breathe, check it. Like you can do that shit at home. Get your
right,
husband to listen to your heart rate. Like
mhm.
that's not
Your
like
watch.
like where's the specialty in that, right?
Mhm,
Where is the the right to be put up on a pedestal just because you can like take somebody's blood pressure.
mhm, mhm,
And so I think if we start to reframe the way that, not that they don't deserve our respect, because that's not at all what I'm saying. I'm just saying like you should get your money's worth. And like when I went into my GP and said, "Hey, I would like to have my hormones tested," she's like, well, "Why? Like, do you have
mhm,
any concerns?" I'm like, "No, I just want like a baseline measure. Like, you guys don't just take data. Like, it's
mhm,
data, it's information that's going to be in my file and I'll be able to refer back and look to see if things change and
mhm,
help me better understand my body. But like if you're not willing to go in and ask for things, and that's not my nature. I'm not generally like super persistent. I'm a very like go with the flow kind of gal.
mhm,
But as I get older, I'm like, no. I start to think about stuff and I'm like, this bullshit. Like we deserve better care for what we pay for medical care. We
mhm,
deserve top tier medical care.
mhm.
If that person's not willing to give it to you, thankful she was like, yeah, let's do this. But like, if that person's not willing to meet you with what you're asking for, then that's not the right practitioner, in my opinion.
No, I totally agree. Yeah. And I still think that the point that you keep making, I think, is so important is that you took that information in there. You wanted to learn more about it. You were
Mm.
being a very, again, proactive patient, advocating for yourself. And I think that that is the first step in us getting better healthcare, is
Mm-hmm.
us coming in and not necessarily like demanding it in a sense, but being an educated patient and coming to our provider with questions and again, legitimate reasons for exploration. And I think in
Mm-hmm.
those cases, I mean, are they still going to have to meet medical necessity? Might there all kinds of other things they're going to maybe serve as somewhat of blocks. But the fact that you are taking those steps, I think, is what opens the door for greater access to care. And now, 10 years down the road, let's say some shit goes down, you'll
Mhm.
have that information and be
Mhm.
like, and you'll be able to see percents and change. When do things start to happen? You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
just, it's always going to be there. And that is going to be so helpful. And so I think that whenever you have an interest in your own general health, that you get from whatever source it is, taking it in and being a proactive patient with your doctor and then starting to do the work is the best thing you can do to get on that whole wellness pathway. And so, and now look where it's got you. You got the
Yeah.
app, you're doing it all.
I'm doing the thing. I will say, I was, and I could have totally just been making this up. I mean, I don't know this for sure. I never asked her, but she seemed like jazzed
Mm-hmm.
that I wanted data and information and wanted this. And so I think maybe too, you know, yeah, because I can assume if you're seeing the same patients and like you're doing the same thing that I just described, like that shit gets old. I mean, it does. And so
Yeah.
like you want somebody to come in and be like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
let's explore this. Like I'm this age. I know this is like an issue. Something coming coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like I would be pretty pumped if somebody came in and was like, let's be proactive about something here instead of
Mm-hmm.
reactive about everything. I didn't come in there diagnosing myself with perimenopause. I didn't come in there
Right.
giving myself, asking for some specific medication. I just wanted
Mm-hmm.
information, period.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that sort of like, I don't know, she was just like, yeah, yeah, we should,
Yes.
which is
Uh,
what I think that's what I wanted. I wanted her to be that way.
Right. Well, and I think you're 100% right. You didn't come in there with your Google diagnosis. You know what I
Right. No,
mean? And you
Google
weren't
Doc.
in the, yeah, Google Doc. And, the negative term that we used to use for was med seeking. It's not like you're coming in there med seeking. And
Yeah.
so I think as long as we're not, I just believe, I think you're 100% right. Because my colleagues throughout my career were not other psychologists. Hell, I barely worked with other psychologists. I worked with
Mm,
my colleagues. My pool that I swim in is physicians. I
yeah.
work with GPs, I work with specialty. And yeah, nothing would get on their nerves more than somebody coming in with a Google diagnosis. And then
Hmm.
they would come in with a Google diagnosis and what medication they should be prescribed to treat the Google diagnosis. But if you go in there just wanting information, they will most of the time they will absolutely be happy to indulge because that's what they're actually trained in.
Yeah.
Is to kind of go through this whole exploration process and to have somebody who's also interested in it. It jazzes them up for the rest of the time. And so
Kind of
I
reignites that passion
yeah.
of why you got into that field in the first place. Like even taking it from a school perspective, we're going way off topic here, but like
Mhm.
same thing. If somebody comes in and
Mhm.
they're like, "Hey, I know my kid has autism," like I'm like, then why do you need me? Why do you
Mhm.
do all the testing and like investigation? Like you've already decided what's wrong,
Right.
you
Right.
know? So it's same thing. Like if we would just come in and be like, "Look, I have some concerns. Can we
Mhm.
explore this?" The end, like you're so much more willing
Mhm.
to go there and like put in the effort than somebody that has already done your job.
Yeah.
They can already do it better than you. Why do they need your expertise? Why'd you even go to school and pay all that money? Like, why? Like
Seriously.
when Joe Blow down the street can make that determination.
Yes, exactly. No. So this is cool. And I think it highlights 2 points is that, yeah, you heard about this topic from different areas, but then you really were very introspective and you took the right steps to make this a healthy decision for you.
Hmm.
And I just think that speaks to what we're trying to promote here is total educated, informed, shared wellness based upon our own interests and experiences, and then how that can then, affect us as individuals, our families, the greater community. So that was
You're
big.
putting them,
That was big stuff.
yeah. I mean, give yourself some power back, right?
Yeah.
Don't
Don't
accept that this is how it is. And I
don't
think
dry up.
don't dry up and die. Fuck that. Like, I mean, I just it's all connected, our gut, our brain, our mind, it's all connected. And
Yes.
so you you've just got to be proactive as much as you
Mhm.
can. And like I said, I'm willing to try anything. I'll do anything, try anything. Um, but you got to do some research on the front end and know your body, listen to your body, and go from there. I drink my green juice every day. Like I'll do anything
Mhm.
to keep this machine well oiled in more ways than one. Uh,
It is a machine. That's right.
but yeah, I think it's cool. I'm into it, man. It's so far so good.
I love it. I love the information too. It's fun. So we'll look for a follow-up on this and see how it
Yeah, let
goes
us
then.
know. Go to our website, go to lilaspodcast.com. Check us out on social media at the LYLAS podcast on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Check us out everywhere and just let us know if this is something you are yourself trialing, if it's something you have interest in and you would like for us to find an expert and try to get them on the podcast.
Hmm.
I would love to personally to do a follow up just because I'm into it, but I want to hear from you,
Hmm.
ladies.
Yeah, this will be our time. We'll also post that app that you used to because I think that sounds really
Mm.
cool. Like it sounds like totally legit. Like if it's going to give you a link to like research, then that's better than just, a paid actor talking about something. So,
And it'll tell you, I mean, I didn't even touch on all of the areas that it gets into, but like self talk, it talks about your creativity, your beauty, your social, your career. Like it gives you insight. It's not saying it's not like a horoscope, right?
hmm.
And I'm not, no, I'm not knocking horoscopes. Don't come after me. Like I'm just saying, like, it gives you information about your body. You're like, obviously, I know when I'm bloated, but like, it's going to tell you more about your hormones, what they're doing, how it's affecting you mentally, emotionally, physically. And that to me is the information piece. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Hmm.
I just think it's good stuff. So, anyway,
Check it
good
out.
talk, guys. Good talk.
I love
Love talking about the old menstruation.
breaking down walls, folks. Like we said, it may be a little
Mhm.
taboo, but hey, we did it. And our website is going to have that link to the resource on the whole cycles thinking too, because it is so good, easy to understand. Great intro to this whole thing if you're interested in learning more about it for sure. So, all
Okay. All
right.
right. That's all for this week. Until next time, Lilas.
Peace out.